I've so there's a idea that I subscribe to, that is you are a sum total of 5 people you're around, right? Uh, so uh, how do you eliminate toxic people from your friend circle? Because it's so, I think emotions don't have any logic. You cannot add emotions. Like if you have a friend that is that the friendship lasts for around you have been friends with him from first grade or something like that, you cannot just say, yeah, you're not productive, you're not you don't have the same goals that I do, so I'm not going to talk to you forever now, just be deleted from my life. It's very hard to do that, right?
Mhm.
How do you deal with these situations? Because like we talk about all these concepts that are possible but are very hard to implement. So I have read a ton of books about how to use my life, use my time properly, but these are the practical problems that you face when somebody asks you to come out with you, but it is not possible for you then to you say yes, because you don't want to go, but it is about the history that you have with that person and you don't want to hurt them. You're not doing something wrong, but you are doing something that is against your best wishes. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with people essentially?
Okay. All right. Well, that whole saying of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, there is some wisdom to that. I mean, I spent more time with creative people now that I live in Salzburg, just because, my boyfriend is a designer and a lot of his friends are, creatives of some kind. And that's great. And that makes me consider, it makes me consider doing more creative projects myself, which is great. So there is definitely something to be said about the influence of other people on you. If I was around people partied 24/7, which I don't particularly enjoy, then I probably would start to feel weird, because why don't I want to do that? And they all want to do that. So yes, other people influence us. But I also really do not like this quote, because it makes it sound like who you spend your time with is just another thing that needs to be optimized. And I'm a coach. I literally do help people change something in their life, and I guess optimize their lives. So I get the irony, but at the same time, I don't think that this approach of, evaluate your friends on a pro and cons list and optimize for only the ones who you think have the potential to be successful and interesting, I don't think that's necessarily the best approach. So actually, I think that's a terrible approach. So you talked about, I think, different types of people here. You talked about toxic people, then you talked about people who maybe you've just kind of outgrown the relationship, and then you've also talked about not hurting people's feelings and still doing what's right for you. So for, first of all, I would be careful with the word toxic people, because just because someone isn't, let's say, ambitious and wants to be self-employed, and maybe that's the number one thing in your life right now, doesn't necessarily make them toxic if they enjoy other things in their life that don't have to do with ambition, right? That's not a toxic friend. Toxic friend or a toxic person is someone who is verbally abusive toward you, who says things that make you feel bad about yourself, or who hurts you in some way, or otherwise just messes with your mental health. I would say that's a toxic person. For those people, it can be really tricky to get them out of your life, because, they're usually great manipulators and great at emotionally threatening you with weird side comments. So for that, I would recommend looking up all the advice on how to get out of emotionally abusive relationships, because that's a big thing. But for just, let's say, people who you used to be friends with and you don't necessarily want to be friends with anymore, I would do 2 things. One, when I have a friend, oftentimes a newish friend, and I realize, oh, maybe we're not the best fit. Maybe we're too different, and I thought I really liked you, but I guess I don't. Then I just literally stop being the super proactive person in the relationship. I will stop, suggesting things. I will just let it die down quietly, if you will, without having a breakup conversation, because we probably haven't been friends in that way anyways. And for that, I'd just say, don't do anything that goes against your own interest in a very obvious way. Don't commit to a vacation with them. You really don't want to go on a vacation with them. Ask yourself these questions regularly. Am I doing something that I already know I don't want to do? And try, even with the baby steps of, meeting them somewhere, maybe push that back a little, or, just don't do it if you can. But there's also other friends who you might not feel like you want to be friends with them anymore right now, but you have a long history with them, where things might change and you might very much love having them in your life again in 5 years. So after I got out of high school, which happens when you're 19 in Germany, after I got out of high school, I, went into college and I started a business, and my mind was full of optimization and everything like that. And I had one friend who started to take a very traditional life path that was more about security. And I could not understand it. It really made me mad. I felt that everyone needed to, be into personal development and everything. And we just didn't have that much to connect about anymore, because it turned out a lot of our friendship was based on being in school together all the time, and also having a lot of things, the same issues and the same stuff to talk about. And when we were basically long distance, because we went to college in different places, it all just felt weird. And for a while, I was also pretty bothered by this the 5 people you spent the most time with thing. And I was like, oh, maybe we're not a good fit anymore. And then now I'm really glad that we remain friends. We didn't meet each other all the time. We maybe didn't have the longest phone calls, and maybe there were certain topics that we just didn't talk about because we didn't get it for each other. Yeah. But over time, we preserved the friendship. And now, 10 years later, we have things in common. And she's a very, very precious friend to me, and a super important person in my life. And I'm really glad that, I guess in German we say, we let each other live. That means you, despite your differences, you just leave each other alone and are happy for them. And, took the friendship into the next cycle of the friendship. So I do think about friendships as having seasons, and sometimes I have a year where I'm really close with my best friend that I've been friends with forever. And sometimes I have years where we don't really know what to talk about as much. And then it changes again. So I guess, to sum all of this up, if they are toxic people, literally research how to get out of toxic relationships. What applies to romantic relationships also applies to other relationships. If they are just people that you want to spend less time with, do your best to not say yes to things that you already know you want to say no to. So decrease contact slowly but surely, and stop being the proactive friend. And if they are friends that you are kind of falling out of love with, but you have a history with them and you did value them a lot, they were really close, give them another chance maybe, and just change how frequently you interact, or find something else that you can connect with about, if that's sport or something else that you can share. And don't do a big drama breakup thing that you might regret later, as you yourself become a different person again.